Hey guys, what is up? I am back with the official rebuild of my 250 Yamaha. Little backstory on this thing. Took it out, ran it for a while. It was running fine, or so I thought. And got home that day or the next day, flushed it out. I checked the oil on it and it was just milky. And I knew right away that I blew a head gasket, and unfortunately it had to come out. We took it apart, and the more I peeled back the onion layer, the worse and worse it got. So I'll show you on the cylinder head where it blew. Right here is where it blew. I kind of tried to fill it in with some aluminum rod, but that didn't really work too well. I just try to see if I can do it. But I was trying to do this on a mostly budget, but I can't, just because just reality of it, you can't do it. I am going to reuse the bearings. I am going to reuse the starboard side cylinder head. I had to get a new port side cylinder head, or a new used one, but the bearings are still good. They're checked out with the plastic gauge, so I'm going to reuse them. It's no sense spending $600-700 on new bearings when I don't need to. So I'll show you the block. Just got it back from the machine shop. They surfaced it for me. I wasn't going to have it done, but I went ahead and had it done, and I'm glad I did. They took about 6 thousandths off each side, so she's ready to be put back together. So first thing I'm going to do is going to get it cleaned up in the parts washer, clear all that crap off, and then I'm going to get it put on the engine stand, and then we're going to get to work. All right, got the block cleaned up with some solvent. I do need to come through here and get some of the silicone out of here that, or it's case bond anyway, that goes along here. I did put this together at first, and then conscience got the best of me, and I couldn't continue to finish this project without getting that deck block. So I ended up taking it all back apart, sent it to the machine shop, and it's $800 to $330 it took to have it decked, which I'm glad I did, because it looks a lot better now, and they took about 6 thousandths off each side, like I had said. So I'm going to continue to clean this thing up and get the bearings put in, and then get the crank put in, and get the rods and pistons put in. So here we go with that. All right, I've got this block all cleaned up. She looks pretty good. Got all the silicone out of the these holes and stuff like that. So next thing we got to do is go ahead and lay our bearings in, and layer cranking. So I got the bearings still somewhere. Like I said before, I'm going to go ahead and reuse the bearings that I have, just because it's going to be so much more cost effective, and they're within spec, so why not use them? So they're going to go back in the exact same spot that they were in before. Some Permatex Ultra Slick. Get this on here to get these bearings lubed up prior to putting in the crank. Sure is that I'm not replacing these bearings, and even if I did, you're gonna have to figure out which bearings is gonna fit your particular engine, because luckily mine were all number 2 bearings, so all these bearings are actually the same as part number wise goes. But you'll have to look at your block and look at your crank to see which one is the ones for you, and then if you got to replace them, order the correct ones like that. Don't forget our thrust bearings. Put some of this assembly lube right here to help it stick so we can get our crank in. And once the crank's in, they'll stay. Oops. Get it facing the correct way. Just want to get a little bit on there so they stick. Then put some on the other side of it too, so that will be lubed up, and then we can set our crank in. Just got to make sure our oil seal's on the crank before we put it in. Then we can slowly lower this thing down, just as such, and we should be good to go. Make sure thrust bearings are where they're at, parallel with this block, parallel with the deck of the block. And I take my lint-free cloth and go over everything prior to us putting the cap on, and then we'll torque it down. So go ahead and get the cap cleaned up, and then we'll come back and put the bearings in, and then we'll set her on down. All right. Got it all in place, got our 3 O-rings in place. All we gotta do now is put her on carefully. Now we just got to put our bolts in. Got to make sure these are oiled up first before we put them in, and then obviously the big ones go, well, the big ones go here. Smaller ones go on the outside, and then the outer ones go on the outer side. How about that? Just using this to run it down. There's no torque on this thing at all. I have it on the lowest setting. You're supposed to use plastic gauge to determine your bearing wear and all that stuff. And I have done that prior, before doing this video, so it was good. It was still within spec, so just wanted to point that out. Okay, now we get to do the oh so complex torque sequence on this thing. So, torque sequence goes as follows. That's the pattern, and that's the numbers you're supposed to follow. So 1 through 8, you go up to 18.4 foot-pounds or 25 Newton meters. 9 through 16, 40 Newton meters. And then 17 through 29, 14 Newton meters, where the foot-pounds are there. And then on the second pass, you do 90 degrees on 1 through 8, 90 degrees on 9 through 16, and then up to 28 foot-pound or 28 Newton meters or 20.7 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna do 1 through 8 first. And I'm pretty much just gonna follow the book as such. These torque angle torque wrenches, it's a snap-on. I got this off eBay. So I'm using just Newton meters because it's a lot easier to follow that. And we'll go with 1 through 8. So here's 1 through 8. So we got number 1. All right, yeah. Number 1 is the outside ones here. We go 25 Newton meters on 1 through 8 first. Here we go. Number 2. Number 3. All right. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. We need to bump this up to 40 Newton meters, so and do 9 through 16 first pass. Pretty much the same way we just did everything else. Pattern wise. All right, number 9. Number 11. The block's rotating on me. Here. $13 is going to be up here. 14. 15. And here is 16. Okay, so now we need to drop this back down to 14 Newton meters and do all the outers. Or 10.3 foot-pounds of torque. But looks like whole numbers are a lot easier to understand. All right, so we were at number 16 was here, so we're gonna start with number 17, which is this one. And then go to number 18. Number 19. This does not require a lot of torque at all. Come on. And I'm an idiot. Helps if you use the right size socket, which is the outers are 12. These are 13s. Okay, got that one. So 19, we're at number 20, which is over here. 21 is up here. 22. 23. 24. 25 is up here. 26. 27. 28. And last is 29. All right. So those have been torqued to 14 as per the manual. So now we need to go up and change this thing to, you guys go to foot-pounds, 90 degrees, let it calibrate itself real quick. All right, so the GoPro thought it would be cute to cut off the last part of the torque sequence, which I took these cap bolts and did the 90 degrees with the torque wrench. So pretty self-explanatory. Anyway, now we're gonna go ahead and get the pistons installed, and that'll wrap up this video for part 1. And then part 2, I'll show you the cylinder head assembly. Okay, so prior to putting these pistons in here with the rings on, I need to make sure the ring gap here is correct for the bore that's going to go down. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure this is correct. I'm going to use my feeler gauge, and according to the manual, the top ring, which is this one because it's marked with an R, that's for your top ring, is 0.15 to 0.30 millimeters, which is 0.006 to 0.012 thousandths of an inch. So we'll check to see where we're at. Maybe we don't need to do anything. It's down here like this. Get my piston that I want to use. I made sure to put these, label these PT port top. So it's supposed to go down about 20 millimeters, which is roughly about the width of that, just a little bit more than that. And then what I'll use is the feeler gauge and to see where we're at with this. So I'm gonna start with the biggest size. That's what I really want it to be. It's 0.30 millimeters. And since this motor is all metric, I just kind of go with the metric stuff instead of trying to convert it to inches and all that other stuff. Okay, that checks out. So top ring is good. And now the second ring. So I'm gonna do the exact same process, but this one's gonna be 0.30 millimeters to 0.45 millimeters. That's according to the book. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Get my piston. Slide her on down. Just level it out. Scotch over that, and then we'll use a feeler gauge to see where we're at. So 30 millimeter. Yep, that fits in perfectly. Let's see if we can go up any more. There's 35 millimeter, 0.35 millimeter, sorry, not 35 millimeter. Yep, that fits. Let's see. Like 45 millimeters is right at that limit. So I think we're good to go on that, and all we gotta do now is put these rings on this piston, and then we can put the piston in. One thing I wanted to show you guys, that water had actually made its way into this thing, and looks like it had been kind of burning water for a while. So bad that it actually pitted up this piston pretty bad. But according to the machine shop, it's still good to use. So I'm gonna run it, save some money, not buy a new piston, which is like $190 for a new one, or you get them online or eBay or whatever. But I'm gonna go ahead and put that other one on here, and we're gonna get everything squared up, and then we'll get it installed. Now, I've already done this a few times, so I already know where these rings are supposed to go. So 1 and 4 are supposed to be offset here. This will be 5, 2, and 3. So we're gonna start with number. The way I put these things together, I'm gonna start with number 4, is your oil ring. I'm gonna do that one first. This one's pretty flimsy, but you gotta be careful still. All right. Then we're gonna do 5, which is the bottom one underneath the oil ring, and these can just slip on pretty easily. They're not, of course, you've got to be gentle with them. Can't really like manhandle the crap out of them, or they will break, and that would suck because these piston ring sets were $55 a pop. So do the math, times 6. It starts to get pricey after a bit. So we're gonna move that over in the section 5. Number 3. Slide this one on gently. Okay. Make sure that gap is in that orientation. A couple little of these picks are quite handy for this kind of thing. Got these at Harbor Freight, so they were not expensive. Make sure the oil ring gap is here. Where's that gap at? There it is. Just slide this guy over just a hair. And then I'm gonna do this thing, make sure number 5 is where it needs to be, lined up with that one. Let's get 5 lined up, 4 and 3 lined up. Now we're gonna take, this is R, so this is number 1 ring, so that's the top one. We're gonna do that one last. I'm gonna take 2R, and 2R needs to be, and the numbers here, number and letter here need to be facing up. So we're gonna take piston ring pliers. These guys right here, piston ring pliers. And open it up to be able to set on top of this. But first I need to put a little oil on this. It does make it go a lot easier. Move the cell phone out of the way so that doesn't get screwed up. Right, a little oil in that thing. So this is number 2. This orientation will be right here. So just open her up. Come on. Try not to spread it open too much. because like I said, these will break on you. Actually, I think it was this piston that I actually broke one of the ones getting them off. And I think it was just because it was corroded pretty bad from all the water getting in there. Of course, I had no idea until I opened it up and then discovered, oh, damn. All right, so that should go right here. Do the same thing to the number 1 ring, or the R ring. Number 2 was 2R, this is R. All right, that should do it. Make sure these things stay lined up. Good. Move this around. That's good. All right, that's good. So now we can get the piston ring compressor fitted over this, and then we can install it. But first, we're going to put some oil down in that cylinder, and that's what I'll do right now. So for the piston ring compressor, I'm using your traditional band type compressor. For the record, I hate this thing. These edges are super sharp, and this thing is actually seriously hard to turn. And I really hate using it, but it's all I got right now. So, and like, this is probably the second time I've really ever used this thing for an engine, so I'm not concerned about it. But if I had to do this more often, I'd be considering getting something a lot more user-friendly than this thing. But for like one-off projects, this is okay. But I feel like any second now, this thing's gonna slice me open. Set it over like so. Ready. Okay, then all we gotta do now is tighten her up, get the rings compressed, and we'll move over to... All right, so before I'm gonna put this on, I'm gonna obviously take the end cap off for the rod. Bolts that came out of the rod itself. And I'm using these temporarily until I'm ready to actually torque all these down, which is not yet. But the reason I'm doing that is because these things are one-time use, and that's not fun. I like to put some of this ultra slick engine assembly lube on the bearings here, and because once again I'm reusing all the bearings. I'm not replacing any of them because they still look great. They still checked out great from the plastic gauge that I did with it, so why not reuse it? Because by the time I replaced them, just the main bearings alone would have been like another $300. That's not even the rod bearings. So if they're still good, why get rid of them? So fork top, I'm gonna install it just like this. There's a fly in there, get out of there. Guide this in just gently. Reach up here and find the rod. Can. All right. This problem earlier where I did not want to go in, and I discovered that if I a little bit turn, line this up just a tad bit better. She'll go in. You can see that ring's getting caught on the side. just like that. I still hate these things. They're not the best. So it's nice at the top. What I'll do is I'll roll the engine over and put this rod cap back on. Just keep it on until I get the other piston, the last piston in. Just square it up. I'll throw a little bit of oil in this because I gotta take it back off anyway. Clean that up. And I'll just use this, and this is actually an 11 millimeter. Cool. So, all right, so we got that in. This is snug down for right now, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the last one in. I got verification today from the machine shop that piston should be okay to use the way it is. But yeah, so the last, I'm going to do the exact same process I did with the last piston and put that in, and then we'll move on to the next step. So the last thing we need to do to finish up the bottom end is we're going to put new bolts on our connecting rod caps, and I got them over here. They're new bolts. Yamaha, according to the manual, says you're supposed to use new bolts every time you undo these. These are one-time use. That is the part number. Actually, these are US made. Crazy. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to put this on a time lapse. But it's pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty simple. I wouldn't say self-explanatory, but it's pretty simple what I'm going to do. Basically, I'm going to take the old ones out, put the new ones in, oil it up, of course, and you got to do 3 rounds of torque sequence for each bolt. So you can do one at 23 Newton meters, the second round at 43, and a third round at 90 degrees, or there's the foot-pound conversion for it. So that's pretty much what we're going to do. I'm basically only going to do one at a time and do each one at 23 Newton meters, and then go back over them again at 43 Newton meters, and then go back over them one more time at 90 Newton meters. All right, you kind of saw me struggle with it a little bit with it at the end. It'd be helpful to have somebody actually hold this thing while I did that. But did the 3 stages plus the 90 degree, or the 2 stages plus the 90 degrees, which would be 3 stages. I'm So that pretty much wraps up the crank, bearings, and pistons and rods and everything else. The next one, we're going to move on to the cylinder heads, and right now that's going to be on a second video because this one's getting pretty long and probably boring, and I don't want to lose my audience. So we're going to go over that. So please like and subscribe if you like what you're watching and you want see more of this. Hopefully I'll get these videos out as soon as I can. Thank you.